Welcome to the Rapid Enablement Podcast. We're helping connect you with the latest tips, insights, and strategies on what it truly means to build and run a high-performing sales enablement function. Let's dive right in. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really excited about this episode because we're talking about all things SDRs and specifically how to onboard sales development reps. Now, I know this is a big question for a lot of folks. My guest today, Jill Bruno, just to give you some quick insights. She's an incredible leader the past six years, is it, for sales development?
I've actually been in sales development for 10 years. I would say probably 4. I was an individual contributor as an SDR, and the last 6 have been leadership. So yeah, it's been a decade. It goes by fast.
I do want to let people know, not only that, but she's been named top 100 women in sales twice and top SDR leader to learn from. So incredible titles there. She's also a champion and proponent of supporting women in their success and rise in tech sales and sales leadership. She's been a team leader at Girls Club and a mentor at Girls Who Sell, focused on helping women climb the ranks of sales leadership. And today she is the co-head of Altisales. So without further ado, Jill, thank you so much for being here.
No, again, thanks for having me. I love the full circle moment because I still remember when we met. I was actually really pregnant, and you were my mentor assigned through, what was it, Women in Revenue? So I love that, so many years later, now we're doing a podcast. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, very excited. And Jill, maybe, let me, if I got the introduction right, but maybe it'd be helpful if you want to share a little bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in the sales development arena for 10 years, and I don't really think I have a special story. I was your typical misfit where I actually worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and it was terrible. I was wearing business suits outside with a hose and sponge, washing cars, and I just knew my life was bigger and better than that. And again, no dig for the people who do it. I wasn't, my cup wasn't filled. I wasn't happy. And I ended up getting referred by my sister, close friend, for an SDR position at a software company. And I was like, sure, anything but this. It's so funny. All I wanted was a desk job. I'm like, I don't want to be outside. I don't want to shovel snow and wash cars. Give me a desk job. I don't care. So I jumped in. I was scared. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But once I guess we can call it the onboarding jitters, which we can get into, all of that dust settled, I was like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this. Wow, you can actually make some good money. Wow, there's so many paths that you can do. And I was hooked really quickly, but I knew early on I wanted to be a manager. The AE path wasn't for me. Same with AM, CSM. I just knew, quite frankly, I had some pretty crappy leaders that I knew I could do a better job supporting an SDR team. And alternatively, I had some really amazing leaders that I looked up to, and I just aspired to be like them. So all of that motivated me to really get where I'm at today. But again, it all started with a crappy job and a leap of faith, taking an interview that I was really nervous for.
That's awesome. It sounds like, we all start somewhere, and it led to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, everything happens for a reason. I'm such a believer in that.
Yeah, me too. And Jill, so to kick us off with the subject here, given that you've managed and led multiple teams to success, you've been an IC yourself, let's talk about onboarding, SDR specifically. And oftentimes people can give this to the enablement team, assuming it might be easy or assuming, hey, just throw a few things together. But maybe from your experience, can you walk us through why is onboarding SDRs correctly so critical?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really something you have to be intentional to get it right, because this is the first experience that somebody has with your organization after the interview process. And I know this isn't about interviewing, but all too often expectations are not set appropriately. It's all fluff and rainbows and sunshine. And then onboarding comes and you're like, wait a minute, That's not what I thought the experience was going to be like on my last phone call. So, you're really setting the stage for them to feel good or bad about joining your organization. And you don't want anybody to have immediate second thoughts, especially if they turn down another offer to join your organization. So, you need them to feel special. You need them to feel valued, important. Give them all of those feels so they're like, wow, like I made that right decision and they actually care about me. That all starts with the onboarding stage that you're going to set because, again, you never want them to look back. You want them to feel supported. You also want them to feel challenged, like they're growing and learning. But truly, onboarding is so critical because that is going to be your first impression, which you're not able to redo.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's just such a critical time, especially if it's their first time working in tech sales or in a fast-moving environment. Like you said, they may have declined another opportunity for this. So making sure that it sounds like you're putting equal amount of time and energy into this onboarding experience as you do any other role, like an AE, closing roles, AM, stuff like that.
And I mean, I'm bringing really a big SDR perspective to the table here, but you also have to put yourself in their shoes depending upon where you are and what type of org you have. Is this going to be a recent college grad? They've never had, a big boy job or a big girl job before. So, excuse me. So they're not sure what success looks like. So they're truly absorbing everything. Or is it somebody who maybe they have had a few years of experience and they are comparing you to everything? So you really want to make sure that it's seamless, that you're speaking to whichever journey your new hire is on because they're going to come in different flavors, but you still need to have consistency and, make them feel special and important and also that they're learning.
And when you look at that roadmap there, have you noticed anything different with, let's say, smaller companies that you've worked for or built versus maybe some of the larger companies?
So speaking to my experience, I've had opportunities to work with, under 100, as much as a couple hundred. So that's really going to be the employee size I could speak to. But what I've found is some of those earlier companies, they might be a little less organized, perhaps more ad hoc. Your peers might be training you, your manager's jumping in and training you. They're probably going to be running everything because they might not have a dedicated onboarding team, enablement team. It's really just going to be on them to help get things orchestrated. They might have somebody who helps with the schedule, but they might not. So it might seem a little bit more lax or more flexible because there might not be as much structure, but it also might come at the detriment of missing some standardized trainings if it is going to be a little all over the place. But I will say a really good positive to that is you are getting trained by your manager who you're there to impress them. You're there to meet their expectations. You're getting training from a peer who, you're joining the same seat as them. They can take you through the true day to day. They can share the good, the bad, the ugly, what success look like. They can relate to you on, some of those crappy days that, the prospects are hanging up, but you're getting that real life experience that sometimes you don't get when another external team would be training you. But again, they're going to be really busy. There might be a couple gaps that get missing, but I do feel like you're going to get a really good sense of this is the actual job. So that's how I see things on the startup because we know it's like wild, wild west. You're wearing a million hats, right? But on the other side, if you are going to join a larger organization, especially, if you're in an enterprise organization, they're going to have a team to support this. So what's good about having, again, an onboarding team, an enablement team is it's probably going to be a very structured process. They should have your first couple weeks, if not your first couple months, lined out with modules. You're going to have regular check-ins. You may have pass, fail, quizzes or certifications. It's going to seem almost like a college course, like pass or fail. This is what you have to do. And there's going to be that accountability that might get missed when it's, just, hey, let's check in. How's it going with those smaller orgs? And what I love about this is it does create consistency and also scalability. So that way you can handle multiple hires at once. But a downside that I have noticed is information can get stale quickly. If there's going to be new product releases, new team trainings, new leadership in seat, I have seen the old way for new hire onboarding. You're like, oh, wait a minute, that's not so relevant. So you definitely need a lot of buy-in. You need
Mm.
to make sure that the leaders of these teams, you are meeting with the onboarding team, enablement team. You have to have all of those stakeholders involved to ensure what success looks like. Because if you're not collaborating, your new hire could be, they think they're prepared, they think they're ready, and then it's like, wait a minute, like that's not the cold call script we use. Like, we don't use outreach anymore. Now we use SalesLoft. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But I will say, having experienced both sides as a leader now, like I will take all the help that I can get. So I wouldn't say there's a right or a wrong way to do it. Always ask for help, always accept help, and, just put yourself in that new hire's shoes. Like, what do you do every day? Just make sure you cover it. And, I have no doubt that everything will work out for the best.
That's great advice. I really like that, the thought out, as you said, just putting together an actual structure versus throwing random resources at them. And then I really also like the fact that you point out to collaborate with the other leaders in the organization.
Another thing too that I didn't note, but just like a little piece of advice here is do things in chronological order. Don't on your first training session, okay, let me show you how to go into Salesforce, convert a lead into an opportunity. Like, what? Like, they need to know, who do you go after? Who is your ICP? How would you even qualify or unqualify a person before you'd even look to Salesforce for that conversion piece, or even outreach or sales off, or whatever your enablement tool is? Before you're going to train them on sequencing somebody, where is that person? Is it going to be in your CRM? Do you maybe have a team that uploads it into that system? I think sometimes people get jumbled, and you think about, what's the first thing you do? Okay, what is the second thing you do? So on and so forth. Don't start with step 10. Start with step 1. And I feel like that was an internal battle I always had when I worked at a smaller company, because I was fortunate they would do the onboarding scheduling on my calendar, but I'm like, you have this all wrong. Like, so I was always just ended up going rogue. I'm like, okay, this should be Salesforce training, but it's going to be a cold call script training. So we'll swap this one for that. So Tuesday's Thursday, but little chaotic. Again, you just want to do things in the order that makes sense, because that's how the brains are going to click better than jumping steps. So yeah, that's a big piece of advice. Think about the order in which you're going to execute.
And it sounds like what you're saying is also how not to overburden or overwhelm, especially as a new hire, all this new information coming to them all at once.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring that up, because I try to, again, collaborate as much as I can. I'm always a team player, but I also want my say to make sure things go pretty smoothly. And I've seen different philosophies around, your first week, schedule every ounce of time, no downtime, just have them grind and crunch. But it's like, they're going to be confused. But then I've seen kind of the reverse, where you have an hour or two a day, and then your reps feel like, oh, geez, is this it? I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. So you do want to have a good balance of, they're going to be overwhelmed. They're probably not going to remember things that first time, which is fine, but balance out. Don't overwhelm them, but also don't give them so little that they're like, what the heck? Like, I have 5 hours left today. Like, fill my time.
Really ensuring it's a full calendar's worth of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's a good segue from your experience. What is something that's often missed or overlooked when onboarding SDRs?
So I've noticed a couple things, and some are just also lessons that I've learned along the way. But I think that a lot of times people overlook setting really clear expectations of, this is week 1, this is week 2, this is week 3. This is your first 30 days. This is your first 60 days. This is your first 90 days. I've actually noticed, ironically so, the biggest gap as I've joined leadership. I sometimes think it's more buttoned up for the individual contributors, and then by the time you're a leader, it's like, oh, you've been there, done that, like, you're good. And I'm like, wait, I'm still new. I need some training. But yeah, be really clear, because, reps are going to be their own worst enemy. They're going to be their toughest critic. So like that calendar situation I was saying, if they feel like they're not doing enough, you don't want imposter syndrome kicking in and onboarding. Like, am I good enough? Am I accomplishing enough? Am I what they want me to be? If they know, here's your checklist for week 1, and they check everything off, awesome. Enjoy your weekend. Like, you kicked ass. Like, keep it going. And, again, for those milestones. So be really clear and also understand that that could also be part of their love language. Maybe they need words of affirmation or certain things to know, okay, I'm in a really good headspace to move forward. So that's one piece. I also think a huge gap is when whoever is onboarding, they are to assume everybody learns the same. I've actually experienced this probably the most on one of the more recent teams that I managed, where some people, they couldn't sit and just read an article. They couldn't read instructions. They needed to go through, be walked through multiple times. That's how they learned. Where on the other side, one person, I could type a message on Slack and they would blow my mind away with how well they executed. So you really have to focus on accommodating different learning styles. And my last piece is patience, repetition. You know, if you have, and I always say, listen, I would rather you come to me 10 times with the same question until it really sticks than for you to ever feel embarrassed. Like, oh, I have to ask Jill how to convert an opportunity again. Like, no, it should be such an easy flowing conversation that, you know, the leader, you're very patient. There's going to be repetition, but that's what's going to create a really good relationship between you guys. And, you know, it's going to help them ramp up quicker, even if it seems like it's taking more time, you know, in that very second. So again, I can't say it enough. Be really patient and repeat yourself. Sometimes it's almost like you have to act always like they know nothing, which they might, but like pretend they've never had a job before, even if they have experience, break down every single thing and just assume that they know nothing, because it's better to overtrain than to ever undertrain.
Okay. Especially for enablement reps that are listening, I think that's such a key insight, which is even if it might seem basic or something that people should know, it's really good to review the foundations and just re-explain things. And that can also, you know, there might be some gaps there that re-educate someone. They maybe had a different opinion about it or different ideas. So that's a really good insight.
And like I said, it's always just falling back to put yourself in their shoes. Don't get frustrated if you're like, oh, I'm explaining this again. Like, no, this person, yeah, maybe they've used Salesforce before. We all know Salesforce is different every instance you use. So don't assume. And I hate to say this, it's your job. Like, your job is to get them ramped up. So, you know, give them grace, give yourself grace, be patient and repeat, because that's what your salary is for. Like, you got to train and onboard new people the right way. So it is your job.
That's awesome. Yeah, repetition is key. So Jill, I know you've got a fantastic framework for onboarding SDRs. I'll let you kind of announce that your 30-60-90, but maybe you could walk us through this and your thoughts on setting up new reps for success.
So yeah, I can speak to the perspective of one of like the last rounds of interviews I did many months ago. I was creating a 30-60-90 presentation. So I put a lot of thought into how I wanted this to receive. So I'm really happy to walk you through what I feel is really successful for those first 90 days. And honestly, even if you're not getting those from your leader or, you know, whoever you're reporting to, do it for yourself. Like, I always keep a 30-60-90 of my personal log of peaks and valleys. What are things that I'm really proud of? And what are things that maybe didn't go so well? Because, you know, your first 30 days, it's going to be like, whew, what did I even accomplish? And sometimes you might feel like, you know, I'm busy all day and I'm accomplishing nothing. But then when you take a peek back and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I have 25 peaks of things I'm really proud of. Like, I forgot I did that on my first week or second week. Your mind is a blur. Or, you know what, in hindsight, those valleys, like, I know it was a little challenging. I know I struggled with this, but I feel way better about it now. So again, I always say, keep your peaks and valleys and just have it be as your own reminder of what is successful and what can you just keep working on. But outside of that, the themes that I've done for the first 30 days, and I am speaking more of a leadership perspective, not necessarily an SDR perspective, is, you know, observe the team, learn the products and services, you know, get your bearings on what the organization is about, how are, you know, the team's behaviors today, what are things you like, what are some red flags, maybe what are some yellow flags, but don't come in like a bull in a china shop, like, I'm going to tear this house down and rebuild, because you're going to lose a lot of credibility if you don't understand why things are a certain way, because you could overlook something. And I think that's really good advice if you're, you know, maybe on your first or second leadership role where you would think it's the best impact to change everything. Sometimes it can have the opposite effect. So just come in, observe, and learn. And with that, get through any certifications that you might have to do. I always suggest look at the reporting availability that you had and start making a list of the reporting that you're going to need, because you're probably going to see some gaps of, oh, I really want insight into this data because I know I can coach with it. So set up your KPI sheet or use a tool like Altisales, where I work right now. We can plug right into your outreach instance to make your KPIs a breeze. But, set up the data points that you actually want to coach your reps to actionable results on. I love, excuse me, doing an exercise with my team called Start, Stop, Continue. So you get everybody into a group. If you're in person, virtually, however you want to do it, this should be everybody's guards down and they are bringing their authentic truth. So as a leader, you have to allow that. So don't bring your grumpy face, bring your smiles of, hey, let's figure this out. So what are things that the team wants to start doing? Perhaps bottlenecks from previous leadership or just other experiences, you can remove. What do you want to start doing today that will make your life easier to bring in more revenue for the organization? Alternatively, what are things you want to stop doing? What are things that you hate? What are things that are driving you nuts that you are just not productive? Let's list it out. And then lastly, what are things that you want to continue doing? Things that are, really just make sense and you want to keep driving that forward. Of course, not everything can promise, but this is a good sense of where's your team at. And then also first 30 days, determine your reps vigor. How is the talent on the team? Is their skills up to par? But again, that's all part of the observing. So now moving to the 60 days, you have a month under your belt. This is where it's a good point to start to implement some of the changes that you've determined from what I just gave you for your 30 days. But then you also really want to start to monitor that. So, maybe you had to audit your sequences or make some improvements to the tech stack. I would say you should have at least the, V1, your first version of reporting, what you're tracking, what you're looking at. You really want to start to align your rules of engagement, especially if you have an inbound team, if you have an outbound team, if you have, customer leads going to account managers or AEs handling their slice. Depending on your org, the flow charts could get wide. You don't want to step on toes. You need it in writing. It should be black and white. This is yours, that's theirs. Let's move on. Without that, you're going to create such a case-by-case headache for yourself and a lot of whining. Sorry, reps, but sometimes you whine a little bit. So make those rules of engagement really clear. And this is also where you can start to see, what are your KPIs? What are the red flags? Have you identified any trends? I'm always big on color coding. Is there way too much red? Maybe you shot a little too high. Or are all your KPIs all in the green? Maybe they're too easy. So just start to take a look and see. Just let the data tell you a certain story, but I wouldn't make changes just yet. But just, keep your eyes peeled. So again, 60 days, implement and monitor. And then for 90 days, you're always going to keep monitoring. And then that's where you're really going to start to drive some of those enhancements. Because at this point, you have 2 months under your belt. You should be enough where, if you're getting that V2, the second version of reporting, you're tightening those screws. I would probably shoot for at least 2 to 5% improvement in your KPIs, because now you know what data to use, how to coach, what's going on. And really, if this was, say, an outbound team, you should be well underway. Never wait if things don't seem perfect. They're never going to be perfect, but you should have, again, all your ducks in a row that by that 90 days, you're driving force for what you're there to build. So I know I covered a lot, Taylor. Where do we want to dive in? I just gave quite a bit.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was the additional bonus content for enabling a new SDR leader as well. So very cool there. Are there any, let's say like an SDR is finishing their onboarding, what are some tests or benchmarks that you kind of look for? And then how do you know when an SDR is ready?
Mm-hmm. I mean, my joke is, are they ever really ready? I feel like there's always going to be nerves, so keep that in mind. It's, you're nervous to pick up that phone, so I don't think anyone's ever going to feel fully ready. It's like, I feel like when you speak to people who are expecting, like, are you ready to be parents? Like, no, I'm not ready, but baby's coming soon, so you got to figure it out. So I kind of relate it to those. But some things to look at is, what is the time and seat? How long have they been there? I mean, I know some people get reps on the phone the first day. I am not that bold. I usually try to get reps on the phone by at least the second week, unless, like, I know 4th of July is coming up for when we're recording. We're going to lose a couple days. That could impact it. But you also have to think about the products or services you're selling. I've worked with some tools that are so easy. Reps can get on the phone the first week because it just clicks. But I've also worked at orgs where the tech is so complex with 25 add-on modules that reps need way more training to be able to properly qualify or unqualify prospects. So again, how long have they been there? And you also get some, just the triggers in, are they confident when they speak? What is their tonality like? Are they participating in one-on-one or group coaching or training sessions? Are they actually implementing that? Or if you're role playing with them, are they volunteering? Or do you have to be like, hey, you in the back, like, come on, like, is it like pulling teeth? But what is their readiness to jump in and start doing the job? And it's also really good to get a gauge of what questions are they asking you and what questions are they asking others? Because these are things that I've noticed that, the reps that stand out to me, like, hell yeah, you're ready to go. Like, let's jump in. And then when I don't see some of this, that's where I'm like, okay, let me make sure that I have more one-on-one time with them. I usually like to do for like the first week of onboarding, it's hectic. HR, paperwork, bank accounts, health insurance, you got a lot of things checked off. But the second week, every single day, I make sure to have 1 hour book with them. We can review things. We can really dive into like, hey, I love what you brought to that meeting, or you seem a little quiet. That's okay. What are you feeling? Really get them to let their guard down, because you'll notice the thoughtfulness and the intentions behind the way they're behaving. And, again, that just helps level set some of the readiness.
And are there any additional maybe exercises that you could share with maybe enablement folks that are just listening in? The 11 to 30, 60, 90, they're going to start putting that together. But are there specific exercises you found that you feel are rudimentary or profound to the success of the SDRs?
Yeah, so I'll elaborate because I kind of touched on it. But when I have a team that is maybe a little younger in their career and I really have to keep that training going, I like to have a training every single day of the week. I usually do Mondays are KPI reviews from the week prior. Tuesdays are going to be live role plays with the team. Wednesdays, I do call coaching where the team has to bring call recordings to the group, and then we all give really productive feedback of, what's going well, what's not, because again, you can talk the talk in the role play, but can you walk the walk when it's actually a recording with a prospect? Thursdays, I do a huddle, which is just going to be any random topics to discuss as to not take away from the themes of the other meetings. And then my favorite meeting is, I call it's a Friday learning share, where everybody on the team, they have to bring something they learned from a webinar, a podcast, a book, just something that could help the team at cold calling, at sales. Sometimes it's about mental health and, work-life balance. I know one person on my team brought an article about the best times to eat during the day and then when to take your walk so that way your mind stays productive. Like, it's whatever we want, but I have all those in a group setting, and usually new hires are a little bit timid. They are nervous to jump in. They're just joining the club where everybody knows each other and they kind of feel like the outcast, which I want to eliminate all of those feelings. So as I mentioned, the second week, I do at least 1 hour of one-on-one time. You have to replicate those trainings. If it's their first, rodeo at KPIs, okay, new hire, let me explain to you where these numbers come from, what I'm looking at, what reps look at. Break it down and don't just assume that sitting in a group setting, they're going to get it. Same with the role play. Hey, here's our cold call scripts. This is why we're choosing these words. This is the psychological impact that we're looking to drive, that aha moment of the prospect realizing you solve their pain. Of course, it's a no-brainer to take the meeting, so on and so forth. But I think a lot of people skip that. Have the one-on-one sessions with them that are, again, for the group, because it's going to make them feel much more confident, not only in participating, it brings up the competitiveness. When they get kind of the why behind the meeting, it's like, no, I want to be the top of the leaderboard. Like, I want to kill this role play and, crush these objections. So I don't know. I've just seen a lot of success in just breaking it down again for those new hires.
And so it sounds like when you add that collaboration or team environment to some of these meetings and one-on-ones, it really helps new hires feel much more confident and move into their role much quicker.
Yeah. You're building up again. Think about it. They just joined your org. They're not going to get everything. And sometimes we forget that. So take it slow, be patient, and repeat yourself.
Jill, I know we're close to time here. Any lasting thoughts here? I was going to ask, is there any other tips that you have or things to think about when onboarding SDRs?
Yes. My final tips would be accept all the help that you can get. Don't be a hero and think you can do it all. Delegate.
Yes.
Have your check-ins, but it is okay to accept help. And if possible, try to hire in a cohort. I have hired a few weeks apart. Oh gosh, drives you nuts because this person's on week 1, they're on week 3. If you can, try to get them all in that same hiring class. If again, the time frame aligns, because it'll just help you in your capacity and your mentality as you're training folks if you can have them on that same page. So again, that's what I would do if the stars will always align.
That's huge. I think that's a huge tip there. Well, Jill, thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate all the insights. Where can people find you?
Oh, I'm very big on LinkedIn. I probably spend more time than I should, but if you want, check me out. It's just going to be under Jill Bruno. Again, I'm the co-head of sales development at Altisales, so that way you can make sure that it's me. But if you have any questions about anything, seriously, just shoot me a note. I'm happy to jump in and help however I can, but that's definitely the best way to reach me.
Awesome. Well, Jill, thank you so much, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks so much, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Rapid Enablement Podcast. If you've enjoyed the podcast or want to support us, please like and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and of course, LinkedIn. Make sure to hit the notification button as well to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Also, this podcast is designed to serve you, the sales enablement professional. Is there a topic you are curious to hear more about? Let us know. Drop us a line on LinkedIn or check us out on our website, the rapidenablementpodcast.com. Thank you so much, and we'll see you